And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Rocky Tano. He's our speaker today. He's the owner and founder of Obsidian Worksite or websites. He is Navajo, Japanese, and Filipino, and he grew up on the Navajo Nation. And he attended Northern Arizona University and has a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Visual Communication. And I'm going to turn the time over to Rocky.
Okay, thank you, Marsha. I appreciate that introduction. I was enjoying the slideshow presentation you had going as well. So good morning, everybody. My name is Rocky Tano. I wanted to introduce myself in my Navajo, the Net language, culturally speaking, introducing myself in case there's any relatives out there. Yate Rocky Tano inashia. Betahni e nishle. Japanese e bashish chin. Desh chini e dashiche. Filipino e dashinala. Akut a e dene nishle. Good morning once again. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to leading up to this moment and working with Changelabs and working with a lot of the different native startup, Navajo startup companies that we've been partnering with. So it's been a real treat and a really great opportunity to engage with them and to provide the different services from time to time over the past few years. So just going into my our company. So we are Obsidian Web or Obsidian Inc. Either one, we go by both. We specialize in website development. We also specialize in a lot of brand development design. So in particularly for today, what Changelabs has asked us to do is focus in on the branding aspect. And so with that, we went ahead and prepared a presentation for this workshop that we hope will provide some help and hopefully ultimately some inspiration to anybody who's wanting to look at brand logo development or design for your own respective company or companies, organizations. So going into today, the logo deconstruction, brand building, defining a presence, I'll be doing the presentation from our side. And I'm the president and CEO of our company here. We have a team of 5 that are pretty solid that we work with and take on the different projects that come our way. And I would say a great majority of those projects are throughout Indian country, coast to coast. We've had the treasured opportunities to work with a lot of great organizations, tribal governments, departments, nonprofits, and everything in between. So it's been a real blessing for us to be a part of that. So with that, I'll go ahead and dive into the presentation. And what I wanted to do is have it kind of be an open sort of discussion. Feel free to use the chats. And Marsha, if there's opportunities, during the presentation where you feel like, you want to stop and ask the questions, by all means, go ahead and do so. We'll keep this pretty open-ended that way. So going into a logo. Well, actually, before I do that, this is an outline just to kind of keep us on track here. So we're going to go into a few things today. The first thing we're going to go into is who we are, which I just did. I wanted to add something unique in there about myself, just to kind of open it up. And then we're going to go into what is a logo. Let's talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the process and the journey of discovery. And our design intake questionnaire. So we're going to cover a few things that we go through with our clients, something that we would love for you to take part in as well in your own organizations or your own companies that you're thinking about. Or if you're in that process, this is something we hope will help you in that part of your journey. And then we'll talk about the logo deconstruction part of it. We'll take a look at what's under the hood of one of the brand logos that we recently completed. And go over the different elements that were involved in that. And then we'll take a little break, have some fun with the logo game, relax a little bit, and then just recap and go over some resources that we thought you might like to take a look at on your own as well. So again, let's see, here we go. So who we are. So we are Obsidian once again. And this is our company mission, if you will, that we like to share with those who are interested in our services. So right off the bat, we talk about how we design websites and brand marketing assets that empower, strengthen, and embrace the spirit of resilience in our Indigenous communities, support of their success. So we're extremely passionate about helping our Native and Indigenous communities with their, whether it's with their website or with their brand identity or with their marketing materials. That's all within our wheelhouse. We love to do that. And so I myself, as Marsha introduced, I graduated from Northern Arizona University a few years ago, and I thought it was kind of interesting as I was looking back on their particular logo. They've gone through a few transitions, so I kind of shared those here. I think one of the earlier ones was the one in the lower left corner right here, and then the upper right corner, that was the one that I remember was pretty dominant when I was there. In fact, my senior design professor, Mr. Tom Knights, he actually helped in a little bit of that development of this logo as well. So it was a great experience there at NAU. Graduated in visual communications, and just kind of I wanted to add something unique, just because I know sometimes we get in these workshops or these engagements, and you don't really know who I am, and I don't really know who you are. So something to break the ice a little bit. So when I was at NAU, I originally started out wanting to be a physical therapist. Actually, no, I wanted to go into being a physical education teacher, and then possibly a physical therapist. So I was sitting there in class, and I was sitting there with my wife at the time. Well, she was my girlfriend and then my wife. It's been a while, but we were sitting there together, and she was my wife at the time, and she still is my wife. But anyway, she was sitting there and she's looking at my notes, and I pulled them up, and this was like our sophomore year, and I looked at my notes, and I was in a chemistry class, and she said, what is this? And I had a bunch of different designs, different logos I was working on. And she said, okay, you're in the wrong field. You need to get out of this. So with her help and with the love, I was able to make the transition and really pursue something that I did love, and that was design. And so I did pursue that, and like they say, the rest is history. So just a little something unique about myself. So I'm glad I did pursue that. So we find ourselves here today. So just like my story, every company, every person, everyone who is wanting to start a business or is pursuing a business, or even those who have been in business for a few years, always come back to the pivotal question, which is, what is in our logo? So I want to talk about that and share some experiences, but also delve into that a little more about some of the common answers that we found working with different individuals, different companies throughout the past 15 years, and some of the answers that we get, and some of these we want to also pose to you as well. So talking about a logo, some of the common answers that we get is, a logo is a representation of your company or what you do. It's a symbol or identifier, something cool to look at, a visual identifier of your services. And some people say, well, it's just an image that really, needs to stand out. And all those answers are true. They all are going towards the ultimate definition that we feel a logo should be. And that's something that we would ask you as well. And on the opposite end, we have a question here that says that we always like to ask our clients is it possible to have a bad logo? And can the development of a logo be overwhelming? So, and that's something that we found working with different organizations is as simple as, it is to say, hey, I need a logo. Your company needs a logo. That's always kind of one of the forefronts, right? When you're starting a business, what's our logo going to be like? What is it going to represent? And so as simple as it sounds, it can also be very overwhelming and very daunting. So that's kind of the image representation here. So just saying, hey, I need a logo, that's the first part, getting in that direction of getting one designed. But the next part is, well, what is our logo? What does my logo need to look like, right? So going to the next slide, we have the process and the journey of discovery. So this, if you can think about, if you're sitting sitting in the room with us, for example, this is what we would actually present to you as our client. But this is something that an exercise that we would also like for you to do on your own when you get a chance. And this is our design intake questionnaire. And it's a series of questions that we feel really helps foster the conversation, but also allows you the opportunity to self-reflect, and also self-reflect not only on yourself, but also on your philosophy, your mission, your services, and put aside, what you want your company to be, how you want it to be represented when you're aside from it. So we'll start out with the first one. We'd like to go into, in a few sentences, describe your organization's philosophy, your mission, and your services. So right offhand, there's a few different things in that question. The philosophy of your company, what is that? Does that coincide with the mission of your company, or is it different? And then also, what are the services that you're wanting to provide? And that question right there can really go a couple different ways. It's interesting when we receive answers to that question, because some are really simple, but some individuals and companies really take a deep dive into, what is our mission, what is our services, and what is our philosophy, because that is what's going to ultimately be represented when someone sees our logo, right? And so going to the second question, who do you envision the logo to appeal to? So, for example, who is your target market? And there's a really great book that I like to reference, and I have it at the bottom of the presentation that's included in the slide as well. But it's by Donald Miller, and it's basically a storyboard of how to building your logo, building your story. And he says, there's so many different avenues that you can take when you want to develop and design your logo, and the story that goes behind it. There's effective, and there's also less effective methods to do that. Some folks really like to cram 10 different things into one thing, which we'll go into in the next slide. But others really try to filter out everything that, sounds good, but then really isn't going to get the message across. So that's something that we like to really focus on is, although there's 100 different things that you could use in your logo that would be cool, look cool, or even sound cool, what is it really that you're going to need to convey what you do when someone sees your logo? Is it going to be memorable for the better, right? Not for in a negative sense. Does it make sense, and is it going to have that profound effect that you want your viewers to have and potential clients? So going on to number 3, what words, adjectives, synonyms best describe your work and your organization? And this could be and this is an opportunity for you to really just kind of get it all out on the table. It doesn't have to be, anything intense. It could just be simple things like, energetic, or, balanced, whatever it is you feel are words that describe your company. That is something that is really key, because that's something that tells us what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and how you see your company. So that's really another great question that says a lot to us. The next question, which color palette or combinations would you like incorporated into your new logo? And so that also was a really great question in terms of allowing you the opportunity to get all the colors that you like out on the table, but also to really filter down which ones you feel are the core 1, 2, or 3 colors that you want, or 4, however many you want. Because there are going to be colors that are relevant to your service area, right? So if you are, for example, a first responder, or if you're in that service field of public service, providing first aid, you're not going to want to use a color that has a lot of heavy darks in it, right? It's just not going to work. And vice versa for whatever line of work you're in, whatever services you're providing. So the colors are really important. And so we take a look at that. We look at the combinations, and we tie that into what would best suit your service area in your business. And then also, which colors and elements do you prefer we avoid in the development of your logo? So there are also colors that, we always like to ask, what colors don't you like? Because it's always tough when we try to do the design process, and then let's say we're using colors that the client absolutely hates or had a bad experience with, or has had a traumatic moment with, because that happens. Some colors we think might work really well might not be something that they feel is in sync with what they have in mind. So that's always a really good important to ask yourselves, which colors don't I want to be a part of my brand? And then the next question, are there existing logos that you're drawn to or find ideal in regards to the experience that it provides? And we ask that question because there's, let's be honest, as human beings, we do draw to certain logos. We do draw to certain companies because of their logo. I think that's safe to say, because of what that logo represents and also the experiences that we have had. So if you look at different shoe companies, for example, each logo represents something different, a different experience, a different feel, a different vibe. So we like to kind of draw that out and get an idea of kind of where our clients like to, what they prefer, some of the different style elements perhaps. So that's something that you can do as well. Get a collection of logos that you really like and are drawn to, and then you can start to notice and identify different pieces of those logos as to why you like those. And then the last question is, what would be the overall experience you would like your visitors to have when they see your logo? And I think that's kind of the home run question there is, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what do you want your viewers what kind of experience do you want them to have when they see your logo? And that could be in whatever capacity they're seeing it at, right? On your website, on collateral, on a water bottle, in print, on your letterhead, your business card. What does the ultimate experience look like? What does it feel like? Tell us about that. So that's a really good question and I think that's why we strategically place it at the end, because when it's all said and done, this is going to be your logo. This is going to be your representation to the world. So we might have our ideas, but we really want to get an idea of what you feel that should be. So that's our design intake questionnaire. We have a few other subset of questions, but they're really just supporting these main core questions here. And then if you want, we can also, I have this, well, it'll be recorded, but if you need the file for this presentation, I can send it to you as well. If you want it as a reference, that's no problem. And so as a company and as our philosophical standpoint, our definition here at Obsidian, when it comes to a logo, this is what it would be in a few words. A logo is an identity that represents a brand. A brand is made up of the mission, the vision, culture, core services, and purpose of a company. A logo carries a dynamic responsibility of communication when you're not looking. So whenever someone sees your logo, that's going to tell your story. And if it's done right and effectively, it will tell that story, and it will allow them to want to pursue, more about who you are and also your services. So the logo really carries a huge, does a lot of heavy lifting, if you want to think about it that way, because it does a lot of work for you when you're not even looking, right? So when you're focusing on building your business, when you're focusing on maintaining your business, scaling your business, your logo is also doing a lot of work for you when you're busy doing those things. So the logo really is the root of will be either a lot of great success, or, it might go against what you're ultimately trying to do. And so that's what we try to avoid in the development and the design process. Let's see. Okay. Oops. There was a chat that came in, so I was clicking on that. Okay. So let's see. Are there any questions so far? Sometimes I feel like I talk, a little too much, but I hope I'm not. But I thought I'd take a moment and see if there were any questions, particularly on what we've covered so far. Any hands up, or everybody okay? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so moving on. All right, so we're going to talk about take you on a little journey here as far as the process goes. So we talked about the design intake questionnaire. Right off, usually what happens is when we engage in the logo process, we come into some really interesting scenarios where our clients will give us their feedback, right? They'll fill out the form, send it to us, and then we'll talk about it. And some of the common challenges is this right here, where, and I don't know if I'm not getting anybody hungry. It's kind of getting me hungry looking at this, but when you think about Thanksgiving, right? And I don't know how Thanksgiving goes in your homes, but I hope I'm not offending anybody. But there's some folks that like to really take the turkey and stuff a ton of things in it. Stuffing, I kind of got a list, and I've actually had turkey that has had all this, and it's nuts. You got the stuffing, the water chestnuts, the celery, the apples, the citrus fruit, the onions, the fennel or phenol, the ginger, 100 different herbs and spices, rice. And they jam it all in there, and they even put like some kind of burlap cloth on top, put it in, tend to it throughout the night, with keeping it moist and everything. And that doesn't always guarantee you're gonna have a delicious turkey the next day. At least not in my experience. So you take that and you compare it to just homemade tortilla and Spam sandwich, right? I mean, that right there can really hit the spot for a lot of people. I know it does for me. But it's simple. It's simple, it's delicious, it's practical, and it's amazing. So one of the two best combinations on planet Earth. And like I said, that I think, yeah, someone commented, the burrito lady. And so if you want to kind of tie, a visual to what we're talking about here, a logo really should encompass these two things. It should be simple, but also very powerful. So I know we've all heard this before, less is more. And that's exactly the premise for a logo, because the logo is going to be used so many times and in so many different instances on different ways that it really has to be powerful, but in a very simple form. So instead of the overstuffed turkey with everything under the sun being crammed into it, you have your homemade tortilla and your Spam. Beautiful thing. It works, and it's tried and true, right? So it works every time or most of the time, and you have a great experience. So right off the bat, we like to tackle that challenge of, hey, let's go ahead and scale this down. You have your list over here of all the things that you want to go into your logo, but it might not work as effective that way. Let's take a look and try to filter some of those things out. What are really the core emotions? What are really the core experiences you want your client to have to say, hey, this is what we do. This is what my company does. And there's no questions, about what we do. This is what we do. And allow them to have that awesome experience. Highlights that we wanted to spend some time on. And just kind of going back to the title of today's workshop was the logo deconstruction process. So we want to, again, take a look under the hood of a few brand logos that we've developed, particularly one of them that we recently completed. So this is just kind of a quick snapshot of a few that we've done in recent past, but also in the past few years that are still out there, that are still being used, that are still representing the organizations that we designed them for. So, and again, in each of these processes, we didn't have 20 different people, 1,000 different meetings, going into the design and development of each of these logos. It was really streamlined. It was strategic. And those same questions that we shared just a minute ago are the same questions that we asked each of these organizations. And so based off of those, we were able to come to a consensus of what really their logos need to look like. So we have the Navajo Nation Washington office, the Quabbell Scholarship, Red Rock Trails, a lot of Jaime's community businesses out in that area that we're working with. Then we have the Trauma Recovery Services of Arizona, that's actually located here in Phoenix. And then we have the Native Fuse Alliance, and they're actually under the American Indian Education Consortium. I'm sorry, American Indian Higher Education Consortium, that's who they're under. So And then we have National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. And as you can see, each one is very different, very branded to the client's core services, their mission, their values, their philosophies. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and take this one here. We're going to go into the Native Fuse Alliance. And this is one that I'm sharing because it's something that we recently completed with them, and it was a really highly engaging experience with the different team members. They had a couple different team members, and they have different departments and programs and organizations that they all network within under this Native Fuse Alliance. So you got the Fuse part is the food, energy, water systems. And so again, that encompasses a lot of different things. So the tricky part, or not the challenging part, I would say, was to embrace something that represented all of those different areas, but also in a way that was not cliche, but also very unique to what they wanted. So listed here are some of the core objectives and preferences that they had. They wanted the brand logo to include a unique style, vibrant colors, natural movement, representative of food, energy, water. And then they also wanted a font treatment that was relatable, but also bold and inviting. So in that, we took a look at a couple different different versions. We had a couple different iterations of different options that we provided. And so with that process, we were able to showcase, a couple different ones. And I think that's a really important part of the logo development process is whomever you're working with, it's important to really flesh out a lot of the different options and variations, because in that process, you can discover some really neat things that you might not have thought about or seen on the surface. So, and going back to my NAU days, NAU days back in college, I think it sounded like forever ago. But my design classes, I know one of the challenges that we were given, and at that time, you got a couple different classes you're taking. But in my senior level design classes, we would have to design a logo, but we have to design like 50 to 100 different versions of that logo. And at the time, for me, I was like, wow, that's just insane. My instructor is ludicrous. But in that process, after doing a couple of assignments like that, it started to reveal a lot of things that I hadn't thought about before. And so that same discipline to looking at different options is something that we still carry today in our business and our company. So we really want to make something that is your brand, is your mark, so that it's not just good for today. It's not just good for the next 5, years, but it's good for beyond that. And you'll see that logos, when they're done right, they carry a really good shelf life. They'll be around for a while. But then there's also companies that feel like a refresh or a rebrand is necessary, and that's okay too. That's something that has a lot to do with the different objectives, maybe a different direction in management or a purpose that they might have at the time. So it's a really engaging, dynamic process. So going back to the Native Fuse Alliance logo, this was something that we after a couple iterations, we were able to finalize and fine tune. And so there's a lot of different pieces to this. And so when you have your logo design, these are also some other important parts of the process. So when it's all done, you want to be able to say, okay, what does each piece represent? And have kind of a style guide, have a definition of what each piece represents for your company. So in this case, just taking it from the top, we have the corn that's inside the kernels of corn. And if throughout history, throughout different native cultures, corn is not just straight yellow, right? It's a couple different colors. They call it Indian corn sometimes, but that corn has a couple different variations. So we wanted to be able to have, as it says here, this corn represents the support of the stalk, protection of what's within, and incubation that advocates growth. again, going back to Native Fuse's core mission and purpose. And we take it down to the actual corn. If that was a stock, this is the actual corn kernels. Represents corn, a common food source shared by many indigenous communities across the country. Also symbolizes stability, resilience, and unity in support of the whole, along with growth and stability. Then we take it to the outside elements. This symbolizes movement, motion, energy, power, balance, each representative of the sun and or wind. So this can serve two parts. It can be either representing power through the sun or solar, or also through the wind and the movement of wind, which is power. And then the bottom we have represents water and the transition from water to earth, the total support of all living things. And then we also want to identify the different fonts that we used. So, and that's important because branding ties into the font selection across the board. So when you have a logo, it's always nice to have the supporting fonts so that you can carry that into different aspects of your brand identity system, which would be like, say, your letterhead, your business cards, your stationery, things of that nature. So this is something that we provided Native Fuse, and also something that they could draw back to. So when they share it with others, whether it's with their board or whether it's with colleagues or funders, whomever you have, there's always a meaning behind the logo. So again, going back to the logo being such a crucial part, a foundation for any business and any organization. And some of the technical end of things, when you're looking at your logo, does your logo maintain its appeal and impact overall, and the overall experience while in black and white? So it's really interesting. If you start looking at logos that are around you, you'll see the ones that are real effective are the ones that can also stand the black and white test. So meaning if the logo is in black and white, does it have that same impact? Does it have that same appeal? Is it getting the message across? And back before, I don't know if anyone remembers the fax machines, but that used to be a thing a couple of years ago. But back when I was in design school, it was always, hey, if your logo can't come across clear and still be legible on a fax machine, then it's not serving it hasn't been designed well. And so we still have that same mantra in my mind, like, okay, well, if we design this, it's got to be able to come across a really sketchy fax machine and still make sense. So we kind of keep that same rule of thumb in our head. But a general rule of thumb is to take your logo or the symbol and shrink it down to a 1 inch by 1 inch proportion. And if it prints out, or if it showcases still real nice, still gets the message across, then you're going in the right direction. If it's something that is really getting muddled or really getting fuzzy and lost, then that's something that really needs to be looked at or stylized, right? So a lot of times we also get clients that have artwork that's already done. And I think I included one of those slides here. And there's some things that just can't be removed, right, for cultural reasons. And so a lot of times that type of artwork is hand drawn or, painted, some other form of fine art. So what we'll do is take that and digitize it so that it's something that they can have and actually use, whether it's putting them on t-shirts, whatever collateral they have. So something that's user friendly for the printers or their vendors that are using from that end. So, but still gets the message across. Let's see. Okay, so jumped ahead here. All right, so again, take a look at your logo. Always ask the question: is it scalable? Obviously it's going to look fine big, but is it going to look fine small as well? And then, this is an example of another client over in California. So this was the original artwork that they had. And so a lot of these pieces, for this dance is very significant and sacred to them. So what we did was, we couldn't just come in and say, okay, well, let's just take this and this out. Let's make it really simple. But instead we had to keep them in there. But what we did was we translated that into a digital clear vector image for them so that they can scale this up and down and it'll still be crisp and clean. So we do a lot of different projects like that as well, understanding that, there's some times where we can't manipulate the original artwork too bad because there's a lot of significance and value in that. So this is just an example of that, things that we do. So it empowers our client to be able to have a logo that is something that they can use on different mediums. Okay, let's see. So this is kind of the take a break time. I know someone might have gotten up and got a drink, or I don't know, restroom break. You can do that right now. It's fine. Or you can take part in this awesome logo game that we have. So this game is actually, are there any questions, by the way, before I get into this part? So this game you can buy like, Target, Walmart, wherever. It's Amazon. You can buy everything on Amazon now. And you might have seen it. It's called the Logo Game. I know there's a few different versions that have come out since the original a few years ago. So what I wanted to do was take a look at number one, and let's see, there's 5 of them on here. Let's see, you can use a chat if you want. Keep that open here. So I'll give you a few minutes for each one, or actually all 5 if you want to attack them all at one time. So we have the first one right here. I'm not sure. I'll be surprised if you folks remember which logo this company represents. We have 2 right here. 3. This will tell me a lot about the demographics if you know what 3 is. 4 and 5. Okay, so let's give you a minute or two here. Okay, so we have Jocelyn Biguet, number 1. Wow, good job. BlackBerry. Yep, that is correct. I used to have a BlackBerry a couple years ago. Okay, wow, Jocelyn. I hope I'm saying your name right. Jocelyn, you're on a roll here. Number 2 is Marriott. Correct? Yep, that is correct. And let's see, any takers on number 3? If you say Tron, yeah, that's not correct, but you're in the right era. All right, Denise McClellan, yes, Atari. Good job. The one joystick with the one button, right? That's the one my brother and I would always fight over. Okay, 3 is Atari. Good. 4 is Expedia. Yep, cool. And 5 is, let's see. 5 is the one on right underneath it. But you were right, though. 5 is close to Foster's. So the one below for you runners out there probably know this one. Okay, ASICS. Yep, ASICS number 5, Denise. And let's see. So this game is awesome that way, where it really shows the power of a logo. And these are all without the actual text, right? So they don't have identifiers, as in this doesn't say Atari, this doesn't say ASICS, but it's the actual symbol portion of the logo. So when you think about your logo, keep that in mind that, you want it to be able to be isolated and stand alone by itself and still have that same effect and represent your company. Let's see. So this is, I only did 5. I don't know how much time we had, but just for kicks and giggles, let's see. Okay. Everybody knows this one, right? Yeah, we know that one. Okay. Red Bull. I think the more popular one on here is probably going to be, I don't know, this one. Starbucks, and probably this one. But for some, it could be this one, which is Rolex, right? Okay. Anyway, they have, I know this one, this one and this one go together really well. So Red Bull and Pringles, just an FYI. But yeah, this game is still out there. You can buy it. It's pretty fun. Obviously, once you go through all the logos, it's kind of done though, because you'll already know what they are. But it's kind of fun to play with different guests or friends who haven't played it before. So I'm kind of nearing on the end here of my presentation. I did want to leave some time for, I think there was another question that came in the chat. So I want to leave some time for some Q&A at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up right here with the last slide, which is a few references, a few resources. I know there's a lot out there. There's so many different amazing books that are out there, or podcasts as well. Um, I know for us, it's kind of always the time, right? Do I have the time to really read all these different amazing pieces of literature, or not literature, but resources for my business? But these are some of the ones that we wanted to highlight that really, I think, speak to creating your story, but also unlocking different challenges that you might be having to really identify what you want your brand to be. Because when you take the logo is the foundation, right? Everything kind of springs forward from that, tells your story. You start looking into your website, you start looking into your brand identities as far as like your collateral, your stationery, all those things become supporting players to your company. So it's real important to identify what you want that to look like. So it starts with the logo, but then it starts to develop from there, and it starts to grow into something that you want it to be, that ultimately tells your story, tells your mission, tells your services. And again, keep in mind that it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple, but straight to the point, and very profound when it's done right. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, as long as it's something that you feel represents your company and your services to its fullest. And so that starts going into the marketing aspect. That starts tying into the whole umbrella of the marketing. So, and there's so many different pieces that go into marketing. But your brand logo is definitely a key component that will set off the different sparks that you'll then develop for each part of your company, each part of your services that you're offering. And just really making sure that it makes sense, because you have to remember, just like a website, has a few seconds to really capture someone if they're going to stay there or leave. Your brand identity also has to do the same thing. So when they see it, it's got to be something that's interesting, something that they can remember, something that they ultimately follow up on. So creating more business for your company. So we have the brand, the Donald Miller, Building a Story brand. Some of these you might have heard of. I thought, personally, I thought this one was a really good book. It's Creativity Inc. It's by the president of Pixar Animation and Disney Animation. Really, really good book. Just a lot of different challenges that he had to overcome, different avenues he had to pursue. Just the whole thing, just going behind the creation of those two amazing companies. Rework is another great book. It's kind of a simplified, just straight to the point, abandoning some of the long-lasted methods of how to do business. So it's a really interesting take on different things, basically trying to allow you to have more time to do what you need to do and focus on what you need to focus, so that your business can grow and develop. And then there's also there's a couple different versions of this, editions, I should say, of this Designing Brand Identity book. This one is the 4th edition. So a lot of key brands that are out there. Goes into those discussions with what that looked like on the back end for different brands, and that we see and that we use every day. So and so each of these are just mainly geared to inspire, but also pose those questions in your mind as you're going throughout your day. What you want your company to look like, what you want your brand to look like, and how that's going to all be supported by your logo. So that's going to be a wrap for the presentation portion. So what I wanted to do was just turn it back over to Marsha and turn it back over to everyone, and see if you had any questions or any thoughts that we could go into, if that's okay.
Thank you, Rocky. Hello, everyone. This is Heather Fleming from Changelabs. Just making a note that if you do have any questions, please add them to the chat window, or you can go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask Rocky your question directly. All right, I'm going to take a look through the chat window. Please feel free to unmute yourself or add a note.
So Denise asked a question, what online resources do you recommend to keep up with trends and marketing strategies? There's a lot of different resources out there nowadays. What I like to do is, and it's what's the beauty behind Google is you can actually type in what you're interested in, and it'll pull up a lot of great resources for your industry. Before, of course, years ago, they had certain magazines. A lot of things were like in the How magazines or graphic arts magazines. What I like to do, and I know everybody's different, but I like to actually go to the bookstores, whether it's Barnes and Noble, what have your online resources, small bookshops, and I like to go through the design, go into the design areas, because there's a lot of amazing books that you're not going to see, always advertised, but have a wealth of knowledge, and there are a lot of amazing examples and concepts and strategies. So. But as far as online goes, yeah, we usually just utilize Google and type in what we're looking at, what we're interested in, and it's like an endless library right there. So because everybody has their preferences, everybody has different keywords that they're wanting to use to learn more about. So there's a lot of different subscriptions out there. Adobe has subscriptions. Graphic Arts has subscriptions. They have a lot of it is just really what you want to focus on, and you'll find a subscription or a podcast that will facilitate some really good resources.
Okay, Rocky, there's another question from Olin Smith. And he says, actually, it's a little similar to Denise's question. He says, are there any programs you suggest for logo design? I've been using Canva, but there is no freehand drawing of simple shapes.
Yeah, so the industry standard is Adobe Illustrator. That I know we use a lot. I know a lot of designers use that. Of course, since a couple of years ago, Adobe's turned to a subscription-based platform. So before you could kind of get a copy from your buddies, right, and use the program. But that was a while ago. They do have different versions. Like if you're a student, they have a lot of good discounted rates for student rates. But as far as program-wise, Adobe Illustrator is amazing. It takes care of everything you want to do for a logo. There was also Corel Draw, which was a few years ago. I don't even know if they're still around. I haven't really messed with that one before, a lot lately. So Corel Draw is another one. Google Sketch is also another one that I think that's more for more architectural renderings and such. But yeah, I would recommend the Adobe Illustrator for sure.
Okay, there's another question, I think from Terry on our team, and she wanted to know how long your design process typically takes.
Oh, that's a good question, Terry. So the design process typically takes, so once we get the design intake questionnaire, we typically take between, a lot of it dependent on our client, but real case scenario, it would be from week one. From the time we get the design intake questionnaire, we take another probably roughly three to 4 weeks. That's the whole process. Like I'm taking the intake, processing that with our team on our side, coming up with the iterations, the concepts, and then going through the iteration sessions, finally pinning it down to the final one, and then providing them with the brand style guide. So at the end of your brand logo design process, we would provide you with the style guide, which has all the different technical, rules and specifications on how to use the logo. So when you share it with, let's say, different vendors, or you need to share your logo, there's different requirements to say, hey, make sure there's this amount of space that's around the logo. Make sure you're not using it like this, or skewing it some weird way. So the brand style guide is something that we accompany the logo with once it's finalized and provide that to the client. So it's usually between 4 to 5 weeks total, but a lot of times it falls under 4 weeks because of just the process of how it goes. If the objectives are really clear at the beginning, it goes within 4 weeks. Some have gone longer, but again, that was mainly because of the client. They had more input from their team, so everybody kind of took their turn to provide input as we provided the concept. So I hope that helps.
Well, while people are thinking about it, I just wanted to add one more short little announcement from Changelabs. First, I just wanted to say ahead to Rocky for joining us today. And if any of you have more questions about Changelabs and the services that we offer, my colleague Marcia's email is up there on the screen. We're all just our first names at nativestartup.org. The internet is kind of windy and bustly today and unpredictable, so she fell off, I don't know, at around 12:30 Colorado time. I also wanted to use this opportunity to let you all know about our next workshop coming up in 2 weeks, April 6th. One of our business coaches, Cecilia So, is going to be talking about Indigenous leadership and how we can create new mindsets in today's difficult times with everything going on. So I'll put a link in the chat, but it's also here up on the screen, nativestartup.org/events to sign up for the next workshop. And then I'll check again to see if anybody else has any final questions for Rocky. Okay, Rocky, I think that means you're off the hook. Your
okay, thank you so much.
So awesome that it answered everybody's questions.
Yeah, there you go. That's how I'll take
well,
it.
Then thank you everybody for joining us today. And I hope to see you all on April 6th. And again, thank you to our guest speaker, Rocky Tano.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
So much. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.